Do you have time to do an interview?
Sure.
Okay.
How long does it take?
I time it for 5.
Okay.
Thank you. Are you okay if I record it?
Sure.
And live stream it?
Sure.
Okay. And at the end of the talk, if you're like weirded out about it or whatever,
okay.
I won't use the footage. I appreciate you stopping.
Sure.
I have a marker here somewhere so I can take notes. What is your first name?
Amy?
I'm Anthony.
Anthony, nice to meet you.
It's very
my
nice.
My husband's name.
Oh, okay.
He goes by Tony, though.
You know, I used to go by Tony, but when I graduated college, for some reason, I'm like, I'm done with Tony. Call me.
New stage.
Yeah, and I have, when I go home, like I have family members that still call me Tony, and my wife is like, and my kids are like, why are they calling me Tony? Yeah. Okay. So I have 5-minute chats with people. We pick a belief that you've constructed in your mind.
Okay.
It could be anything.
Okay.
But it needs to be something that you think is probably true or untrue.
Okay.
Like you think horoscopes are accurate, or prayer works, or you've seen a ghost.
Okay.
Karma's real. God exists.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, my husband Tony would find this really interesting.
That's cool.
Let's see. There's several to choose from.
There is. What I found though is when it's a belief that tends to influence you regularly.
Okay.
Like we can talk about paper bags versus plastic, but honestly, when it's something that profoundly impacts you, I think those are the ones that resonate.
Well, I'll go with I believe God exists.
Okay.
And then there's several offshoots from that, but.
Like what? Like.
Well, I believe. I mean, I also believe that prayer works. Honestly, even if it's a placebo thing, where it's just like a because it's a meditation thing. But, yeah, those are 2 big ones, I guess.
Okay. So you, because you have this God belief, there are other beliefs that you have that are related to it.
I would say so.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. Like, I think if you don't believe God exists, then I don't know that you put as much merit in prayer, probably.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have just a friendly chat on why you think that God exists and how you determined that it's actually true.
Okay, that's a fair question. Well, I would say initially, a large measure of it was because I was raised in a faith household, and so when you're a child, you tend to, parrot. But as I got older, and you start to go through college and question things like maybe I want to change my name, I started questioning the beliefs that I was raised in, and I don't know that I can pinpoint one exact moment where my parents' beliefs actually I made them my own. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like there was a time, and it was probably, I don't know, maybe early to mid 20s, maybe around grad school, where I could say that, I started believing that there was a God, not because my parents told me that there was, but because that's just what I believed. Partially through experiences, such as prayer. Again, I'm enough of a science-turned mind to know that there's, studies that have come out showing that like a lot of prayer is just because there's a meditation effect in your brain essentially. But my husband is actually an atheist, so these are conversations that I've had with him. So part of it I think is experience. Part of it is comfort. That's just I was raised in a faith-based tradition, so it was just something that I'm comfortable with. And then part of it I think is your identity. Like I grew up so long, like it would be, and this is something that my husband understands and kind of frustrates him, that he's like, well, you shouldn't just believe that there's a God just because you always have. But if it's part of who has been ingrained in you for so long, like that's a tough thing to let go. I'm not saying that's the only reason I believe there's a God, but I certainly think that's an element of it.
That was lovely. You covered so many things there. So
I thought about it a lot.
I was going to say, it seems like you've really formed some opinions on why you have the belief.
Right. Well, I've had to, given that my husband.
I would imagine. I would imagine that probably has some bearing on it. Okay. Boy, there's so many different ways we can go. Raised that way seems to be a big part of it. Let me ask you this. You mentioned that you have experiences and you tie it to the God. And then you pray and you get comfort from it, but you tie it to the God.
Right.
You have the sense of identity, you tie it to the God. But I guess my question might be, are you predisposed to tying it to a specific God because you were raised this way with this belief?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yes, sure. Yeah. Whether or not that's correct or not, is a fair question. But sure, I would say I'm predisposed to tying it to one certain idea of God, given the way that I was raised. Yeah.
If you were raised in a completely different household, where they believed that Vishnu was one of many gods, would you be attributing these things, the prayers being answered, and comfort, and even this identity that you have?
Probably. Yeah. I would imagine. I mean, culture and the way that you're raised has a lot to do with how you view your own. I mean, so I guess, I've never actually thought of it quite this way. The experiences that I've had are very much real. Then what I attribute those experiences to are influenced by my culture and how I was raised.
Got you. I totally get that. And I'll repeat it back just to make sure I understand it, because I don't want to misrepresent you. But I think what you're saying is, I know for sure that I'm having these experiences, but what I'm attributing them to might actually be mistaken.
Sure.
If that's wrong, please set me straight.
I guess rather than, because I also, even though I was raised in a faith tradition that had the belief that like there's only, only one way, only one right way. As I've gotten older, I've come to, I personally believe that I think it's a saying from some tradition, there's more than one way to the top of the mountain. So rather than, I don't know, I guess mistaken I think is a strong word. I kind of feel like maybe there are many beliefs that are valid, and not necessarily because I hold this doesn't mean that someone else is mistaken. Does that make sense?
I think so. Maybe not.
I would say that just because I attribute these experiences to maybe like the Abrahamic God, if someone over in India is attributing their experience to the Hindu gods, I wouldn't say that one of us is mistaken. I believe there's room for both of us to be right.
Okay.
Just that.
I completely understand.
Like I wouldn't say that because alternative me in another universe was raised in a Hindu tradition and attributes those experiences to a different god or set of gods, that this universe me is mistaken and the parallel universe me is the one that's right. Like I would think. Yeah, I'm fleshing this out as I'm saying it.
That's the nice thing about these talks is that I found is that sometimes people realize that just the act of having the talk helps them get a better sense of the belief, which is why one of the reasons why I like to do these talks. So that people kind of think about the belief a little more.
What is this project, if I may ask?
Well, I'm doing something called street epistemology.
Okay.
Where your husband might be very interested in it, and maybe you too. But Street. Like you're on the street.
Okay.
Although you don't have to go out on the street and do it.
Right.
But it's basically just engaging with a person on a claim.
Okay.
Like a God exists. And asking questions to determine how they can be so sure that it's true.
Okay.
Now, I didn't ask you at the start how sure you were. It's something that I like to ask on a scale from 0 to 100.
Right. Okay.
Can I give the parameters of the scale too?
Sure.
100%. There's no question in my mind. There's no doubt. I know that it's true. I know this God exists. 0%. I've got questions.
Right.
I occasionally doubt. I don't know that it's true.
Right.
I don't think that it's true.
I would say that the rational side of me would say, maybe 80, and the emotional side of me would say 100.
Are there two different parts of your mind that we're talking about here? There's a rational side and an emotional side?
Sure. I mean, right? We're all kind of composed of the things that we know or think intellectually versus the things that we feel emotionally, and sometimes they work in sync together, and sometimes they're at odds with one another. This personal belief that I hold, I wouldn't say that my rational mind and my emotional self are at odds with each other about it.
Because they're actually pretty tied,
right?
Like
Absolutely.
80-100.
Yeah. Like emotionally, like I feel like 100% certain. Like rationally, I'm like, okay, well, there's 8 billion people on the earth and all these different faith traditions, and like the rational side of me understands that, like,
Yeah.
you know, who am I to claim that I have like the one way?
Okay.
But I guess I know for me, like that's what I want to hold on to, I guess.
Could we do just a quick little thought experiment?
Okay.
It'll take like a minute.
Okay.
And then you can go on the trail or we can keep talking.
All right.
But I carry this little thing of candies.
Okay.
Here in my pocket. I honestly have never counted them.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm tempted to eat them. I've actually thought about gluing this shut so I don't. But anyways.
Orange is a good flavor.
I love these. They're just tempting me. So, would you agree that there is either an even number, a total of candies here, even, or a total of candies
Well, I'm a
that are odd?
mathematician, so I would say if you're in the real number world, yes. But you could be, you know, in a different number-based system, and then that would not necessarily be.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But
we could have a culture where 1 is even.
Right.
And 2 is odd.
Right.
Okay. Accounting for that possibility, let's say that every human agreed that 1 is odd, and 2 is even, and so forth.
Yes. Then yes, there is either an even number or an odd number in there.
Whether we go to Bangalore, India, where people believe in Vishnu,
Right.
or we're here in the United States, where most people believe
If you're all
in...
on the real number system, then everybody, yes, there is a definition, like an underlying definition of even versus odd that humans don't control.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were to, just to kind of belabor the point here, but
Yes.
if we were to add these up, count them together, and we came up with 45, anyone that said that they believed 100% that there was an even number, as we currently define the word even,
Right.
is it fair to say that they would be incorrect, that they would be mistaken?
If they're in the real number system, yes. If you were in Z43, then no.
Okay.
Because there are different ways of numbering. Like there's different ways of numbering. Like the base 10 number system that we use is totally arbitrary. Well, not totally arbitrary. We have 10 fingers. That's why we kind of like developed the base 10 number system. But there are, I mean, there's binary system, hexagonal. Like there's all sorts of other systems using different bases.
We
that you
can
use
create
to
our own.
count.
You and I could probably create some sort of numerical
Well,
system.
the base
right?
10 is, yeah, exactly. I mean, the base 10 was created by me. I mean, there are numerical properties like 0 of something is fundamentally physically different than 1 of something. Like that's just like a fundamental, like it doesn't matter what your numbering system is, like a 0 is different than a 1. But once you get past that, depending on your different numbering system, even an odd take on different meaning. 45 can equal 2, like it's, yeah.
Okay. But here on Earth in 2017, the majority of the population
If you haven't
across
studied
the world-
mathematics or advanced engineering or physics, then you probably don't know about the different numbering systems. But that doesn't mean that they
Yeah.
don't exist.
Right. Fundamentally, do you have difficulty pointing out to somebody when you think that they're mistaken? Like,
Yes.
do you have a tendency to give people a pass on a lot of things?
Well, okay, so I'm actually, professionally, no. Like I'm a college professor, and so if my students are, I teach math. I'm a math professor. So if my students are wrong, I have no issue, pointing them in the error of their ways. But
Okay.
on a more, but math is just about as objective as you can get. Like you said, 45 or 44, right? Like that's like either it is or it isn't. Versus when you start to get to more subjective opinions and things, or my personal life, then yes, I do tend to I'm also a conflict avoider, so I tend to I don't usually, my brother has no issue with that, but he's the one at Thanksgiving that my sister's always like so yes, I do have more of an issue with like pointing out to someone when I think that they're wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that character, that what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, that characteristic.
Thank you. Do you think that characteristic is potentially holding you into belief that a God exists? And it might not actually be true, but you might have a tendency to actually think that it exists because of this.
I don't know. I haven't
Character.
thought about that. I will from the future. That's interesting because my husband is actually not afraid of confrontation at all, and is definitely not afraid of like calling people out, like when they're doing something that he thinks is wrong or whatever. And he, 30 years ago did decide to break from his faith tradition. So there very well might be like some sort of a personality trait. I'm sure that there are like personality traits of people who are more likely to stay in the faith tradition they were raised versus people who are more willing to break out of it. There's probably something to that.
So if I understand what you might be saying is you might be less willing to say that you're more correct than somebody else on subjective claims like God's existing because it's sort of in your character, it's in your nature to do so?
Yeah, I think that there's probably some truth to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Versus my husband's like not afraid to call out anybody and be like, I mean, he's not one of those like, he's not an aggressive atheist where he goes around like putting people down for believing in God, but he certainly doesn't shy away from the conversation. Yeah.
Well, he might actually like street epistemology.
Yeah, I think he might.
I've got a card here.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed the talk.
Yeah.
These talks are usually much more productive if we could have several conversations, like 2 or 3. But you're not obligated to do that at all.
Okay.
Sometimes one is enough to like help a person kind of think about the belief formation. And can something be true even though I might be inclined to just give everyone a pass on their beliefs? Well,
I've got a colleague who I work with at the college where I teach, who he teaches English, which is more of a subjective, and there's this maybe you're familiar with like dualism, like it's kind of a pedagogical term. So like when students first get out of high school and are like first year in college and they're 17, 18, at that age their brain is still very much in like a dualistic phase, which means everything is black and everything is white and there's no in between. The teacher has the answer, I don't have any answers. Like versus where we're trying to get to them, where we're trying to get them by the time they graduate is there are gray areas. The professor might not always have the answers. You might have legitimate questions. You can come up with knowledge yourself. You don't always have to look to an expert for knowledge. Like you have that power within yourselves. But usually a typical 17, 18-year-old is not in that mindset. Like they're like, no, you're the professor. You have all the answers and they have to come
more of a
from
deference
you.
to authority.
Yes, absolutely.
Seeing things black and white.
Absolutely. And we want to get them to be like more of a critical thinker and like, okay,
That's
no, you
very
can.
interesting.
You can. And so one of the things that this guy does is he holds up a mouse pad so that like half the room is on this side of the mouse pad and half the room is on this side of the mouse pad. And he asks them, what color is the mouse pad? And on one side, the mouse pad has like the NBC logo and everything like that. On the other side, it's just the back of the mouse pad, so it's black. And so half the room says, oh, well, it's, green and purple. And the other half of the room says it's black. He's like, are you both wrong? Are you both, he shows them both sides. He's like, are you both wrong? Are you both right? He's like, you're both right. You're just looking at it from different angles, from different perspectives. Like truth doesn't have to be. Now, I do believe that there are, some absolute truth. Well, do I believe there are absolute truths? Probably, yes. But
regarding the God question, is there an absolute truth? Yes or no?
I don't know that there is, actually. I mean, it's so. This kind of goes back to like me not wanting to to me, it is an absolute truth that God exists. But I would have a lot of trouble like saying to someone who doesn't believe in God, like you're wrong. Like, no, like that's the conclusion that you've come to and that's the truth for you, which I guess means I don't think it's an absolute truth. But for me, I am at that, especially emotionally, I am at that 100% certainty that God, yeah. Because you can't even really say, I took a philosophy class in college where I learned that, because another thing that I think a lot of people would say is an absolute truth, because it's bad to kill people, right? Murder is wrong. And I took this philosophy class where our professor told us about this culture. I think they live in the South Pacific. I'm going to move into the shade a little bit because I didn't put on sunscreen.
Oh yeah, sorry. Do you want some water?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I think I've got some in my car. But he told us about this culture in the South Pacific where like their main form of trade and nutrition and everything is because of the coconuts, like within the coconut trees. And so it's the men, actually the whole culture, they climb the coconut trees and get the coconuts. And when they do that, like there are people at the base of the coconut tree essentially shaking the tree, like trying to shake the person out of the tree. And the idea is so
people
that
from their own culture, their own tribe?
Like their own family, like family members. Yeah. And the idea is like once you get too old to be able to like hold yourself up in the coconut tree, then you're able to be shaken out. But that's like, it's just understood, like it's not murder to them. It's just like, that's the circle of life. Like you're too old to like be up in, so I mean, and that's like one like slice of an example. Most cultures would say that murder is
that would
wrong.
seem to suggest that morality is subjective.
Right. Yeah, which again to me as like a 19-year-old taking a college philosophy class for the first time was like mind blowing.
Right.
Like what? Like morality is not black and white. So yeah, I guess my answer is I guess I don't. If I sat down and really thought about it, I guess I could probably come up with some things that I thought were absolute truths.
But on the God claim?
On the God claim. Yeah, the logical side of me totally understands that it's a contradiction for me to say that for me it's an absolute truth, but for others it's not. I realize that like, okay, well then it's not an absolute truth. But I don't know if that makes any sense.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Well, I won't hold you up anymore.
Okay.
If you want to, feel free to get on the trail. And
all right.
Some people will take a picture of the card and put a reminder on their phone to message me like in a month, like or whatever. Sometimes I get messages out of the blue like, yeah, I was really thinking about the talk, and now I no longer believe that, or I'm less confident that it's true, or now I'm more confident because I found these other reasons.
Okay.
That type of thing.
Also, I have to say, I think that you're pretty good at this because I don't know what like you're very good at just asking questions and not placing your bias over the top of them, because I can't tell from our conversation like which side you fall on as far as like absolute versus relative versus there is a God versus there's not a God, which is necessary for being like a good like interviewer for this type of request.
Oh, good. Well, maybe I'll just keep it a secret then. Exactly. I could tell you if you want, but whatever. I mean, if you think that there's a chance that we might talk again and we can continue to talk, that neutrality might be best if I preserved it.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then maybe someday I can, if you care, I can disclose,
I think my husband would really be interested in talking with you as well.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Right,
well, Amy,
Anthony.
thank you. That was really a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so
Have
much.
a good one.
You too. Bye. Very animated talker, very fast talker. I feel sorry for the people that might have to translate that video, but I think that was a great talk. She was very comfortable talking about her views. She's a believer, 100% sure her God exists emotionally, 80% sure the God exists rationally, and she's married to an atheist. And she has lots of conversations with her husband about this belief and probably other beliefs that she holds. A large part of the reason why she believes it is because she was raised that way. She seemed to kind of go the relativistic route, that truths might be subjective, which is why I broke out the candy. Interestingly also, she's a math teacher. I really got a sense of the internal struggle that she seems to be going through. Is there really an objective truth? Is truth subjective? It contradicts everything that I've been raised and taught growing up. Yet I'm married to somebody that doesn't think that way, and I have conversations with people about it. In math, there are certain things that are objectively true. These are yes-no questions. It was also really nice to hear there at the end that she couldn't tell my position on the topic, which is exactly what I'm trying to go for. And I think is very helpful for people who are critics of this method, because they'll often say that we're pushing a person towards a conclusion, and Amy, it seemed, didn't feel that way at all.